After I reported my neighbor for animal neglect, he stood on my porch and whispered, "You just signed your own warrant." That night, my power was cut, and I heard scratching under the house. I crawled into the crawlspace with a flashlight, and found something breathing that wasn't mine. I live in Clarksville, Tennessee, not far from Fort Campbell. I bought this place 3 years ago after my divorce. It's a quiet neighborhood, mostly older folks, some families, and a few people who keep to themselves. I liked it here until I met Raymond. Raymond moved into the house across the street about 6 months ago. Nobody knew much about him. He kept to himself. Big guy. Gray hair, long beard, didn't talk much. The only time I ever saw him was when he came out to check his mail or carry something into the backyard. That's where the weird stuff started. Right behind his house was this makeshift pen. Metal fencing covered by a dirty blue tarp. It looked homemade, like something you'd see out in the woods, not a suburban backyard. I noticed it right away but didn't care at first. People out here keep dogs, goats, chickens, you name it. It's not my business what someone does in their own yard. But the sounds that came from that pen weren't normal. They didn't sound like dogs barking. They didn't even sound like any animal I could name. It was more like growling. Long, deep, slow growls that would rumble up around 2 or 3 in the morning. I thought I was imagining it at first. But it kept happening. Sometimes scratching, too. Metal rattling. A weird clicking sound, like bones tapping together. One night, I was out on my porch smoking, and I saw something move behind the fence. The tarp had a tear in it, just a little slit, but enough to catch something crawling past. It was on 4 legs, but it moved strange. Low to the ground, long and skinny. Its back legs looked twisted. It didn't walk like a dog. It dragged its back legs, but not like it was injured, more like it didn't care. I should have left it alone. I know that now. But I've got a soft spot for animals. I didn't know what he had back there, but I knew it wasn't being treated right. So I called animal control. I told them what I'd seen. I didn't go into any wild theories. I just said my neighbor might be neglecting an animal, and it sounded serious. I gave them the address. They thanked me and said someone would be out. They came 3 days later. 2 officers showed up in a white truck with the county logo. I watched from behind my blinds. They talked to Raymond for maybe 10 minutes. I saw him nod a few times. He wasn't angry. He didn't wave his arms or argue. Just stood there with his hands in his jacket pockets, staring at them like they were wasting his time. They didn't take anything. They didn't even go into the backyard. After they left, he didn't look at my house. He just went back inside. That night, around 8 p.m., there was a knock at my door. I opened it, and there he was. Raymond. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask if I was the one who called. He just stepped close to the doorway and said, real quiet, "You just signed your own warrant." I asked him what that meant, but he didn't explain. Just smiled a little and walked away. No threats, no yelling. But something about it chilled me. I didn't call the cops. I didn't think he'd actually do anything. Then around 2 a.m. I woke up. My ceiling fan had stopped. The room was dead silent. I checked my phone, no signal, no Wi-Fi. I got up and tried the light switch. Nothing. Power was out. But the street lamps outside were still on. My neighbors had power. Only my house was dark. That's when I heard the sound. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Slow and steady. Coming from under the hallway. I froze. My AC vent was on the floor, and the sound was right beneath it. Like something was crawling under the floorboards. The scratching wasn't frantic. It was calm. Measured. Like it knew I was listening. That's when I remembered the crawlspace. I'd gone under there a week before to check for termites and left the panel half unscrewed. If something wanted in, it wouldn't take much. I grabbed my flashlight and a crowbar, threw on my hoodie, and went outside. The night was still. My porch light didn't work, but I could see the stars clear above me. The grass was wet with dew. I walked around to the side of the house and got down on one knee. The panel was open, bent outward, like something had pushed it from the inside. I aimed the flashlight in. At first, I saw dirt and cobwebs. Insulation. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then I heard the breathing. It was deep. Raspy. Not panting, just slow inhales, one after the other. Like something big was crouched just out of sight, waiting. I hesitated. I should have walked away. I should have called someone. But I had to know. My curiosity overpowered my fear. I crawled in. It was tight. Dirt floor. Old wiring and pipes running overhead. The flashlight shook in my hand. I moved forward slowly, trying not to make noise. Then I saw it. Something hunched. Pale and long. Its back legs folded under it like a broken spider. One arm, longer than a person's, was curled around a support beam. The hand had thick, cracked fingernails, yellow and bent. It twitched when the light hit it. And then the head turned. It looked like a skull, but wrong. Stretched. The jaw hung open wider than it should. Its eyes were black and wide, reflecting my light back like a mirror. It stared right at me. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. I just scrambled backward, smacked my head on the beams, dropped the flashlight, and crawled out of there as fast as I could. I slammed the crawlspace door shut and ran back into my house. At 3:33 a.m., the power came back on. The lights flickered, the fridge hummed, and everything returned to normal like nothing had happened. But I knew better. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with a baseball bat, watching the front door until sunrise. The next day, I called the cops. They showed up an hour later. I walked them to the crawlspace, showed them the open panel, the claw marks in the dirt, the slime, whatever it was. They looked around and said it was probably a raccoon. Maybe a stray dog. They acted like I was wasting their time. Raymond was on his porch again. Coffee in hand. Watching. He smiled when they left. I tried to move on. For a few days I kept the house locked up, stayed inside as much as I could. I even set up an old baby monitor in the crawlspace, just in case that thing came back. It was stupid, I know, but I needed something, some kind of warning. I also bought 2 more motion lights and installed them on both corners of the house. I wanted to believe that whatever I saw down there had left and wasn't coming back. But deep down, I knew better. 3 nights later, I found my backyard gate wide open. It was locked. I know it was. I double-checked before I went to bed. But when I went out in the morning to take the trash to the curb, the gate was swinging like it had been pushed hard enough to bend the latch backward. It wasn't just open, it was forced open. I walked around the yard. At first, nothing looked off. Then I saw the footprints. Not shoes. Not paws. They looked like human feet, but too long. Toes bent outward like they were broken. 5 toes, but one of them, maybe the big toe, was off to the side, almost like a thumb. The prints trailed through the mud, across my backyard, and right up to the crawlspace door again. The panel had new scratches. Deep gouges this time, like claws had dragged straight through the wood. That afternoon, I went to Home Depot, bought a steel panel and bolted it shut. That night, the baby monitor in the crawlspace turned on by itself. I was in bed, half asleep, when the static kicked in. Loud and sharp. Then I heard breathing. Same as before. Slow. Deep. Wet. And then something worse. A voice. At first it was just a whisper, low and scratchy. But the words were clear. Come see me again. I threw the monitor across the room. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I packed a bag and left. I drove to my brother's house in Nashville. I told him I had a gas leak and needed a few days away. I couldn't tell him the truth. He'd never believe me. Hell, I barely believed me. I stayed with him for 4 days. Nothing strange happened. No calls. No breathing. No nightmares. On the 5th day, I decided to go back. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe it was a sick animal under the house. Maybe my brain had twisted it into something worse. I drove back that afternoon. When I pulled into the driveway, the first thing I saw was my front door. It was wide open. I grabbed a wrench from the trunk and stepped inside. The whole house was trashed. Not ransacked, trashed. Furniture flipped, drawers pulled out, broken glass everywhere. But nothing was stolen. My TV, laptop, even a few $100 in cash were all still there. And on the wall above the couch, scratched into the paint, were 4 words. "You came back alone." I called the cops again. This time they actually came in with their guns drawn, like it might be a break-in in progress. They searched every room. The attic. The basement. The crawlspace. Nothing. When I showed them the scratches on the wall, one of the officers asked if I had kids. "No," I said. He nodded like he didn't believe me. They left 20 minutes later. Told me I should think about installing a camera system and maybe seeing someone if the stress was getting to me. That night, I did install cameras. 4 of them. 1 facing the crawlspace. 1 on the front porch. 2 covering the backyard. At 2:46 a.m., my phone went off. Motion alert on backyard cam number 2. I pulled up the feed. There was something standing by the back fence. Tall. Pale. Shoulders hunched. It was just out of the light's reach, but I could see it sway, like it was waiting. I stared at the screen for 20 minutes. It never moved closer. Just stood there. And then, at 3:01 a.m., it turned and walked away, on all 4s. I watched the recording again and again. I took screenshots. Zoomed in. But the footage never got any clearer. It just looked like a man, stretched out, wrong, moving like a beast. The next day, I took the footage to the cops. They barely looked at it. One of them said it was probably a prank. Maybe someone in a costume. Halloween wasn't far off. I gave up on them after that. I started looking into Raymond again. I ran a background check online. Paid $50 for a full report. But something didn't add up. There were no records under the name, Raymond Fletcher, before 2021. No old addresses. No job history. No family. Nothing. But I know that house has had problems before. So I went to the county records office, looked up the address. I told them I was thinking about buying a property in the area and wanted to check on any issues. The clerk looked it up. The house had been owned by 6 different people over the last 15 years. Every one of them either foreclosed, abandoned the property, or died in it. The last owner before Raymond? A woman named Jenna Laux. She'd been found dead in the backyard. They said she had a stroke while gardening. But I found her obituary online. No mention of gardening. It said she was found half buried near the crawlspace. The report listed it as unknown cause of death. No suspects. No leads. No one ever followed up. I tried to find her family. I found her niece on Facebook. Sent her a message. She replied 2 days later. All she wrote was, "You saw it too, didn't you?" I stared at that message for a long time. "You saw it too, didn't you?" I asked her what she meant. She didn't answer right away. Almost 2 days passed. Then she sent a longer reply. "We tried to warn people. My aunt said something lived under the house. Not like a raccoon or a snake, something worse. She said it watched her at night. That it learned how to move like us. I didn't believe her. But after she died, I found her journal. I still have it. You need to read it. She gave me her number and told me to meet her in person. Said she didn't feel comfortable sending photos. Her name was Caitlin. She lived in Murfreesboro, about an hour away. I told her I'd come the next morning. That night I didn't sleep. The motion alert went off twice, both times around 3 a.m. Once near the crawlspace, once by the front porch. I didn't check the camera footage until the sun was up. What I saw turned my stomach. The crawlspace camera showed the panels shaking. No one was there. Just the door rattling like something was behind it, pushing. But it didn't open. Then, on the porch camera, something else. Not Raymond. Something crawling up the steps. Slowly. It moved like it was pulling itself, arms stretching out longer than they should be. Its head jerked up for one frame, just 1 second. It had my face. Not exactly, but close enough. Same beard. Same eyes. Same hoodie I was wearing 2 nights earlier. It looked straight into the camera and smiled. Then it slid back down the steps and disappeared off screen. I packed a bag and drove straight to Murfreesboro. Caitlin met me at a coffee shop downtown. Early 30s, tired eyes, chain smoker fingers. She handed me a beat-up composition notebook as soon as we sat down. My aunt wrote this during her last 6 months. Most of it doesn't make sense, but the parts that do, they sound a lot like what you're going through. I opened the journal. There were drawings. Dozens of them. All the same shape, long arms, thin legs, stretched jaw, huge eyes. Some had names scratched next to them. One read The Crawler. Another said, It waits until you see it. One page stopped me cold. A drawing of a house. My house. Underneath, she'd written, It comes from under. Not from hell, but close. It doesn't eat. It learns. It copies. It watches the one who sees it. Once it chooses you, it won't stop until it replaces you. Or kills you. Whichever comes first. Caitlin saw my face and said, She kept saying it needed a body. That it couldn't fully survive without one. That it started with her basement. She heard it breathing too. She tried sealing it up. Didn't matter. I asked her why she never told anyone. She looked at me like I was stupid. I did, she said. The cops, the church, my own damn parents. Everyone said she was just sick. But she died terrified. They said it was natural. But she was found face down in the dirt with her mouth full of leaves and both hands broken backward. She paused. She didn't fall. She was dragged. I drove back home with the journal on the passenger seat. When I pulled into the driveway, Raymond was on his porch again. Just watching. He didn't say anything. He didn't wave. But he had this look on his face. Like I was running out of time. I went inside and immediately locked everything. Then I checked the camera feeds. One of them was offline. The Crawlspace cam. Dead. No feed. Just static. I grabbed a flashlight, opened the back door, and went to check. The Crawlspace panel was open again. This time the screws were gone. Not loose, gone. Like someone had carefully unscrewed them and set them aside. I didn't crawl in this time. I just leaned down and aimed the light. The camera was still in place, but the lens had been sliced. Not cracked. Not smashed. Sliced, in one clean motion, straight through the middle like it had been cut with a razor. Next to the camera, scratched into the wood, was a single word. Almost. I called Caitlin again. She answered on the first ring. Did it ever copy your aunt? No, she said. It never got that far. But it tried. The night before she died, she told me she saw herself through the window. Watching her from the garden. Smiling. That night, I went through the whole house. Took pictures of everything. Furniture, mirrors, doors. I made sure everything was in its place. At 3:06 a.m., I heard something fall in the bathroom. I didn't go right away. I waited. Listened. No more noise. Eventually, I got up and checked. The mirror was shattered. The pieces were on the floor like they'd been pushed outward, from inside. One shard had blood on it. But not fresh. Dark and dried, like it had been there a while. I checked myself over. No cuts. No injuries. Then I noticed something worse. One of the mirror shards still hanging on the wall showed a reflection that wasn't mine. It looked like me, same face, same clothes, but the hands were wrong. Too long. Bent backward at the knuckles. It wasn't copying me. It was becoming me. That next morning, I didn't eat. Didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of my bed holding my crowbar, staring at that broken mirror. The reflection was gone now. Just my own tired face staring back. I didn't tell anyone at work. Didn't call friends. Something in me had shifted. Like I knew it was already too late for help. So I planned. I knew whatever this thing was, it didn't just haunt me. It needed me. It was attached now. Watching. Mimicking. Learning. And the only person who knew anything useful about it had already been buried under leaves and dirt. But I wasn't gonna die scared in my backyard. No. I was gonna burn it out. That afternoon, I drove out to a supply store and bought 6 cans of industrial-grade sealant foam, 3 gallons of gasoline, a box of road flares, and a camping camera trap, the kind hunters used to catch movement at night. I also bought a roll of barbed wire and heavy-duty locks. When I got home, I walked straight to the crawlspace and pulled the steel panel off. The inside stank. Like rot and mud and something worse. The camera inside was still hanging, split clean through. The air was thick. Hot, like something alive had been breathing in it for hours. I crawled in one last time. Laid the camera trap in the far back corner, near where I first saw it. Poured gasoline across the dirt, the beams, the insulation. I rigged one flare with a 5-minute fuse and set it next to the entrance. Then I crawled out, sealed the panel, screwed it shut from the outside, sprayed foam into every crack, and ran barbed wire around the perimeter. Overkill? Probably. But it made me feel sane for the first time in weeks. That night, I sat on the porch with the camera trap feed pulled up on my phone. It picked up motion at 3:12 a.m. What it caught still makes me feel sick. It was crouched low in the corner of the crawlspace, mouth open, arms twitching. But this time, it wasn't just watching the camera. It was wearing my clothes. My torn hoodie. My old boots. My favorite flannel shirt from high school. And in its hand, it held the notebook Caitlin gave me. Somehow, it had gotten it. Maybe when I left it in the truck. It looked into the camera and opened its mouth. And then it spoke. Not a growl. Not a whisper. It said my name. Clearly. Plainly. In my voice. Then the timer hit 0. The flare lit. The screen turned white, then black. I didn't sleep. Just waited, phone in one hand, crowbar in the other. At 5 a.m., I walked to the crawlspace. Smoke was still pouring out from the gaps. The panel was scorched. The foam had melted, hardened, bubbled over. I opened it with gloves. Inside was nothing but ash, cracked bones, and what looked like melted flesh stuck to the support beams. And one hand, long and burned, with 5 twisted fingers, reaching up, frozen in place. You'd think it ended there. It didn't. Because the next day, I came home from grabbing coffee, and Raymond was on my porch. Not smiling. He looked pissed. You weren't supposed to burn it, he said. I didn't say anything. He stepped closer. You think it's gone? You think you ended it? I know I did, I said. Because I was never meant to kill it. You were. That made him pause. I told him I'd gone back to the records office after the fire. Looked into his house. His real name wasn't Raymond Fletcher. It was Everett Miles. And 20 years ago, he used to live in North Carolina, until his wife and son vanished. No charges were ever filed. But guess what was found in the crawlspace of that house? A tunnel. Dug out. Filled with animal bones and pieces of skin. Same story. Same shape. Same signs. He ran back then. Changed his name. Came to Clarksville. Thought maybe the thing wouldn't follow him. But it did. Or maybe he brought it. You fed it, I said. You let it grow. I tried to control it, he said. It listens if you feed it what it likes. What does it like? He didn't answer. So I told him. People like me. Ones who ask questions. Ones who go under the house. His eyes twitched. I warned you. No, I said. You warned me too late. Then I handed him an envelope. Inside was a USB drive with the footage. The camera trap. The flare. The burning. All of it. And just so you know, I said, I sent copies to the cops, the county, the local paper. I made sure people knew what you were hiding. He looked like he was gonna come at me. So I said one more thing. You hear that? He stopped. Behind us, under his porch, scratching. Soft at first. Then louder. I stepped back. I think you forgot to feed it last night, I said. Then I walked back into my house and shut the door. Raymond disappeared 3 days later. No one saw him leave. His house is still boarded up. The cops said he probably skipped town. But I know better. The same night he vanished, I got one last motion alert. From the camera I hid inside his crawlspace before I burned mine. It showed something crawling in the dark. Something new. Wearing his face.